Excellent. Well, good morning, everyone. Yes. I would like to start with the mindful breathing exercise and motivations. Make yourself relax and ease, and try to keep your spine or back straight, and feel the weight of your body on the cushions, on the chair, and just watch your breath mindfully. Then we can try to reflect, contemplate that purpose of my life is not only to be concerned with just my own well-being. That will be too selfish, also limiting our own incredible potentials. Therefore, the purpose of my life is to have concern not just for oneself, but all sentient beings, and to be help and benefit to others as much as we can. In whatever way we can, directly, indirectly. Even though there are so many different ways that we can be helpful, beneficial to others, the greatest help and benefit that we can do to others is to help them to overcome their own destructive negative emotions, which are the root of all their problem and sufferings. And to be able to help them to achieve not only temporary pleasure, but lasting true inner peace, happiness. There's nothing better way to help them to do that. And to be able to help them to do that, we ourselves first need to be free from all the destructive negative emotion ourselves, all the obscurations, and need to cultivate all the inner positive qualities, such as true love, compassion, awakening mind of bodhicitta, the wisdom realized in the ultimate truth, and so forth. To destroy those disturbing negative emotion and to cultivate this all beneficial positive state of mind, we need to contemplate, meditate, practice continuously, correctly, To do that, we need to continue to study, remind ourselves all the time. For that very purpose and reason, I'm going to listen. And not only listen, to integrate and implement in our everyday life as much as possible. May our act of coming here together, listen, engage in discussions, reflection, contemplations. May all of this become cause and condition to achieve our highest potential, a fully awakened state. So not only we can be benefit to others, but to be greatest benefit, and not only to just few, but to each and every sentient beings. Um, you have the prayer books.
Yes.
34, page number 34. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving other perfection, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye chudan soge shonam la chanchu patu tane kyapso she sage jiso gigwe sonam ke dola penche sangye du parang. We do the four immeasurable. May all sentient beings have happiness and causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be separable from happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. The seven limbs, reverently I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind. I present clouds or every type of offering, actually and imagined. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless lifetime and rejoice in the merit of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma for living beings. I dedicate my own merits and those of all others to the great enlightened. Short mandala. Sa shi pe ki 도심에 또 담아내 멀리 계시 예대게 서 신도 민대 도 아마 더 신께 요 이담 구루라 나만달라다니 하다야. So does everyone has the Lojong verses here?
They were offered online. I don't know if people brought them. It was at the guy, our website.
Okay.
In here. I think I'll find the page it's on.
Is it here?
Yeah, it'll be definitely in the golden.
Maybe 155.
Geshe 161.
Thank you.
Yeah. So today and tomorrow, during this weekend, 2 days, we will be discussing about this particular text, only with 8 verses, short, 1 page, called, Lojong. Lojong means mind training. Mind training, thought transformations. However you translate. So again, after Buddha achieved enlightenment over his last 45 years, and he passed away, he taught so many different teachings to all different peoples, all different life of people that he met. And all his teachings that he was giving were to transform people's mind, to transform their attitude, to transform. And so again, those all teachings and practice he gave was just to change and transform our mind by training our mind. Because Buddha saw, and he mentioned that your own mind is the creator of your own suffering, and your mind is also creator of your own happiness. There's no some kind of external beings or something that create your happiness or sufferings. You are responsible. We are responsible for our own suffering and happiness. Our own mind creates our own suffering, and our own mind creates our happiness. So from Buddhist point of view, Buddha explained your own mind is creator of all your experience. There is no Buddha outside who is the creator of your experience, nor there is another powerful beings who is the creator of your different experience. So that being the case, so therefore Buddha said, you yourself is your enemy, you yourself is your friend. You yourself is your best friend, you yourself is your worst enemy. When we allow, when we allow the when we allow our disturbing negative emotions to take over our mind, when we allow our disturbing negative emotions such as anger, hatred, jealousy, pride, ego, and all those different negative emotions, when we allow it to overtake our mind, then those disturbing negative emotions brings a lot of pain and suffering. That brings a lot of problem in our life, a lot of conflict in our life, a lot of pain and suffering in our life. In that way, then we ourselves created the cause of our own sufferings. We ourselves created the cause of our sufferings. And therefore, we made ourselves your own worst enemy. On the other hand, when we train our mind, practice and train our mind, through practice and training our mind, when we are able to cultivate positive attitude, positive state of mind, such as sense of contentment, patient mind, true loving kindness, compassion, the awakening mind of bodhicitta, the wisdom and so forth. When we, through such training mind, by practice and training mind, when we are able to cultivate, develop those qualities, then those inner positive state of mind, attitude, qualities brings a lot of inner peace, joy, happiness in our life. And it also leads us to achieve the ultimate happiness. And because of that, when we train our mind to do that, then we become our own best friend that help to bring more joy, more happiness in our life. So therefore, in Buddhism, your own mind is creator of everything, all your experience. And therefore, taking care of your mind becomes very important. Practicing the Dharma means taking care of your mind. That is all it is about. What does practicing Dharma mean? Taking care of your mind. Reducing those harmful negative emotions, and improving those healthy, positive state of minds. That is all about that. So of course, lojongs are mind training for that. The lojongs are to do that. Lojong are different method, technique of meditation practice to reduce those harmful, disturbing negative emotions and to increase and improve those healthy, positive attitude, emotions, feelings, mind. That is what Lojong are. Also, Lojong is also very specific practice to transform, something normally for normal people, something which is challenging, problems, difficult, through training the practitioner, transform them into something opportunity, something positive. Transform them into the path. For normal, ordinary people, they feel pain and sufferings from such experience, situations, events. But the practitioner, through such long-term practice, they are able to transform into something, instead of suffering, something into a joy and happiness. Instead of being obstacles, they transform into an opportunity. Something being, instead of problematic, they transform into something positive and opportunity. And that is, by applying those lojong in our practice. If we can apply and if we are success in our practice by really apply it, then the problem doesn't become problem anymore. Obstacle doesn't become obstacle anymore. The suffering doesn't become suffering anymore. Through lojong practice, they transform that. They transform that. And we have the potential to be able to transform all of that if we really integrate and really practice those lojong practice and teaching, put into really practice. Of course, if we don't put into practice, then that doesn't change. But if we really put into practice, so before we go into the actual text itself, I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the background. This, even the Lojong's teachings, even though they come from the sutras, if you go, original sources, you find some of those teachings in the sutras. You might not find in one sutras, but you might find different those Lojong mind trainings method in different sutras. And then if you go to early Indian master, you find in Nagarjuna's writing like precious garlands, not all of them, but you find some in precious garlands. And then Shantideva's, both a way of life, another great Indian masters that came later after Nagarjuna's, you find in his writing too. But at that time, maybe the term lojong was not so used, so popular, or not so well known. And then those teachings were brought, by Adisha, Lama Adisha, that the great Indian master, Adisha Divankara, around 10th centuries, that he studies, learned from his master and practice himself in India as well as from Indonesia now. He went there he heard of one teachers, Lama Sedlingpa, great practitioner of bodhicittas, and so he took a long journey, 11, 13 months in a boat, you know, and then he studied with him for 12 years, and then again, study and practice. And through that, then, he brought all of those um, practice teachings, um, Tibet, and he shared. And then from there, it started what is known as Katamba traditions, a particular traditions known as Katamba traditions. This Katamba tradition was starting from Adisha and his main disciple Domdemba, and that is where the Katamba traditions and the composer of this text, Langri was one of those Katamba masters, one of great Katamba masters. Mm. It seems many of those Lojong practice were before, some of them were written, some of them were kind of passed orally, Um, but in terms of really writing all of them, it seems to started by Geshe Langri and Geshe Chekawa, and then later Katamba masters. Uh, then Adisha's main disciples in Tibet was Domdemba, who was a lay practitioner. Um, and then one of the main disciples of Domdemba's, Geshe Potowa and Geshe Langri Potowa, and then uh, disciple of Potowa, Geshe Langri Geshe Sharawa. So it's in Tibet, sometimes they are known, the sun and the moon, Geshe Sharawa and Geshe Langri And it is mentioned, in terms of search of these teachings. Geshe 8 verses, the mind training was not so well known during the Geshe Langri time himself, It was there, people knew, but it wasn't like so well known all over, And it's mentioned Geshe Chekawa, who composed the 7 point of mind training as a commentary to this one. Another very well known Lojong, um, text that is known as 7 point of mind training. Geshe Chekawa wrote that one. So that author, Geshe Chekawa, was visiting a friend one time, and he saw a small pamphlet with a verse says, I offer the victory to others and take defeat on myself. When he saw that, wow. Mm-hmm. This is not the way we normally think about it. It's a very radical way of thinking. Normal our way of thinking, take the victory to ourselves, give the defeat to others. But here is teachings or practice, taking the defeat on yourself and offering the victory. He was very impressed by that. He thought if you can practice that, how wonderful it will be. If you can practice that, how powerful it would be to transform your mind, and especially in these degeneration times. That incredibly powerful practice. So he was he wanted to study more about that. He wanted to learn and study more about that. And he asked, who wrote this? Who is the author of this? And then his friend says, Geshe Tangpa. Explain him that it was written by Geshe Tangpa, the author of that is Katamba Master Geshe Tangpa. And he asked him where that the teachers live. And then he explained, one part of Tibet, there's a place called Pembo, a little further from the Lhasa, the capital. Probably maybe nowadays, maybe 2 3 hours drive from Lhasa. And so then, this Chekawa went towards that area. First went to Lhasa, did some pilgrimage, and then he went in a Pembo area, and he was looking for Geshe Langri, asking people where he can meet Geshe Langri. He want to see him, study. And unfortunately, they said, Geshe Langri was already passed away, so he couldn't. When he went to Geshe Langri monastery, then Geshe Langri has already passed away by that time, and he was a little bit kind of disappointed, sad that, and he asked if there anyone's, holder of these teachings, any others teachers, practitioners who are holder of these teachings that you want to study, learn, and then they say there's a Geshe Sharawa, Geshe Sharawa. And so he went to different monastery, Geshe Sharawa's monastery. And then when he went, Geshe Sharawa was giving a teachings. And he stayed in the teachings, he was listening. And Geshe Sharawa gave some teachings, on some other text, not a Lojong or Mahayana text, something else. And he was a little bit disappointed as well at the very beginning because he wanted to learn more about the Lojongs and Mahayana teaching, especially Lojongs. And during the whole course of this course that teaching was given, Sharawa didn't mention at that. And then later, when the teaching finished, this course finished, then Yichagawa saw Sharawa going circumlating around the monastery and there with his reciting mantras, mala on that, and then Yichagawa stopped him, like this will call dingwa, he put it there in front of him and then, asked him to teach. Or he explained, he saw these verses when he visited a friend, this verse which says, offer the victory to others, take the defeat yourself. And he said he was very impressed by that and he was very inspired or wanted to learn more about those teachings, want to practice. And he gave his, but when he went to Geshe Langri was not, and someone recommended Sharawa, he wanted to study and learn from him this. And at the very beginning, Geshe Sharawa said, "Mm, yeah, I do have those teachings, and those Lojong teachings of, but when he said that, and Geshe Sharawa said, then why is it that you never mentioned that during the discourse that you gave? You didn't even mention one time on those teachings, all teachings. And Geshe Sharawa said, what is the point of giving those teachings if no one practice?
Mhm.
What is the point of giving it if no one is really practicing it? But Geshe Chagawa insisted, he really wanted to study, learn, and practice, make a request, and then also ask, what is the source of that? And Geshe Chagawa mentioned from the Nagarjuna's precious garlands. Anyway, so he insists, and then Geshe Chagawa accepted to teach him. And it's mentioned Geshe Chagawa went home, checked Nagarjuna's precious garland, and he found the sources from there as well. Got even more impressed by that. To know that those teachings had authentic sources, it's always good when you of course, if it helps, it is helpful in a way, but still to not only is helpful and um, powerful method practice, but also to know that there's authentic sources coming from earliest, then it gives you even more confidence. And so, anyways, so then Geshe Chekawa studied with Geshe Sharawa for 14 years, you know, and practicing, not just kind of studying just theoretically, but actually putting what he study and meditating and practicing, for 14 years. And then he wrote that 7 point of mind training as a commentary for this. So it's a different commentary. It's not by commentary like that. It goes word by word, verse by verse. He just take the meaning from that, essence, the main essence, meaning from it versus mind training, and then he put into 7 points, and then he explained from those 7 point of. Um, so that is a little bit kind of background of these teachings. Um, and also, I was fortunate to receive the transmissions of these teachings from one of my teachers. Um, yeah, Kepler Lama Soba Rinpoche, who passed away. And at the Geshe Thammas monastery, when we were in Tibet, on pilgrimage, we went to both Geshe Sharawa's monastery, Geshe Thammas monastery, some other monasteries. And at Geshe Thammas monastery, Rinpoche gave the teaching and transmission at that. And again, Lama Sopa Rinpoche is one of those true Kadambas practitioner, Lojong practitioners. Truly, not just kind of theoretical like myself, but someone who really embodies those teachings, embody those teachings, live his life embodying all these teachings. Um, mm, yeah, okay. So there is 8 verses. In the first 7 verses is related with conventional bodhicittas, and the last verses is related with ultimate bodhicitta. So you can say, even though it's very short, with only 8 verses, but it kind of contains the both conventional and ultimate bodhicitta. You know, or if we try to kind of made it simplified, then the first 7 verses is related with what we call the method side of the teachings and the practice, cultivating um, loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind, patience, So those are the part of the practice of the method. And then the other practice, the wisdom, and the last verses, the 8th one is related with the wisdom part, So again, it contains both the method and the wisdom. And method and wisdom is described as the two wings of the bird. When the birds, if they need to fly over the oceans to the other side, they need the both wing. With one wing, they will not be able to fly. In the same way, for sentient beings to fly over the oceans of the samsara to the other side, the shore of, fully enlightened state, non-abiding nirvana, then you need the both wing of the wisdom and the compassions. Therefore, in one of the sutras, Buddha explained compassion without wisdom is bondage. Compassion with wisdom is liberation. Wisdom without compassion is bondage. And wisdom with compassion is liberation. So again, in that sutta, Buddha explained the importance of both wisdom and compassion in order to achieve the liberations. The final liberations, the ultimate liberations. In order to achieve the final and ultimate liberation of fully awakened state, you need both wisdom and if you miss one of them, then you cannot achieve that. And then one of the great Indian master, Chandakiri, is the one who used this example of the two wings of the bird. Actually, yeah. So both the wings, the practice of the both wing of wisdom and the method is again presented here within this very short um, short text or teachings with just 8 verses. The first one is, the first verses is training your mind, to hold all sentient beings as most dear and precious all the time. Training your mind to see each and every sentient beings as most precious and most dear all the time. So it's training. And because when you are able to see someone most precious, more dear all the time, it becomes more easy to cultivate love, compassion, both to the mind. When you see someone is very precious in your life, when you see someone very dear to you, it's much more easy to feel compassion for them. It's much more easy to have empathy for them. It's much more easy to have develop affection, loving kindness towards them. So it is a technique or method to feel more stronger loving kindness, compassion towards all sentient beings, by by training your mind to see and hold them as more precious and dear all the time. So in that, so here, the verse itself, determined to obtain the greatest possible benefit from all sentient beings who are more precious than wish-fulfilling jewel, I shall hold them most dear at all times. Mm. How do we hold them most dear all the time? By seeing they are so precious and kind all the time. When you see they are most kind and precious, um, then you can hold them dear, close to your heart and dear to your heart all the times. And so here they are more kind and precious. By seeing each and every sentient being is more precious and kind than even legendary wish-fulfilling jewels. The legendary wish-fulfilling jewel is then when you make a wish to that jewel, then your temporary needs are met. If you want car, you make wish, the car manifests. If you want a house, you make the wish, the house manifests. If you want a money, you make the wish and the manifest the wealth, whatever. So that is legendary kind of wish fulfilling jewel, the concept of that. If you have something like that, if you happen to have something like that kind of wish fulfilling jewel, how precious you will regard, you will regard that very precious. You will hold that very dear. You will not want to lose that. You will want to hold on that all the time. Hold you very close, dear, precious, isn't it?
Mm.
So here, the Katamba master Geshe Tangpa is saying, you should hold each and every sentient being even more precious than these wishes and jewels. You should hold those each sentient being even more dear and more close than that wishes and jewels by training your mind to hold that way. Why is it so precious, more precious and dear? And so then he explains, the highest ultimate happiness, the highest ultimate happiness of fully awakened state. We can only achieve that highest level of happiness or the ultimate happiness, the fully awakened state, only in relation to by relying on other sentient beings. Without sentient beings, you cannot achieve that. Only on basis of sentient, not only all sentient beings, each and every sentient beings. That is the point. Not only all sentient beings, each and every sentient beings. Because to achieve that fully awakened state, you need to have bodhicitta mind. To have bodhicitta mind, you need to have great compassion. What is great compassion? Great compassion means compassion to each and every sentient being. If you don't have compassion to one sentient beings, then you don't have great compassion. You have compassion, but not a great compassion. If you are having a difficult to have a compassion on one being, that means we haven't developed great compassion. If you have not developed great compassion, there is no bodhisattva. No bodhisattva, there is no full enlightenment. So in order to have achieve full enlightenment, you need to have bodhisattva. In order to have bodhisattva, you need to have great compassion. In order to have great compassion, you need to feel compassion on each and every sentient being. So in that sense, then each and every sentient being is the object where you develop the great compassions that allow you to have great compassion. And therefore that great compassion give rise to the bodhisattva, and then all the other bodhisattvas path, and then fully enlightenment. And so therefore, the highest, the greatest possible benefit, or the highest benefit of fully enlightenment, the ultimate happiness, we receive that by depending on other sentient beings. Not only by depending on other sentient beings, but depending on each and every sentient being. I think that is important point. Sometimes we can see, easy for us to see is depending on other sentient beings, but it's hard to see is depending on each and every sentient beings.
Mm.
So therefore, it is hard to feel compassion on every sentient beings. And so then again, so here the point is training your mind by understanding through such contemplation, meditation, reflecting, how we can only achieve the ultimate happiness, the fully awakened state, only by depending on bodhisattva. Without bodhisattva, there is no fully enlightenment. There is no bodhisattva without great compassion. There is no great compassion without compassion with each and every sentient beings. So each and every sentient being is cause of your great compassions. Cause of your great compassions. And therefore, each and every sentient being is most kind, compassion, and dear. So that is training your mind to see that way. If we feel all other sentient beings as kind, compassion, precious, but this particular being is not kind, compassion, if we kind of exclude that sentient beings, then there's no way we can develop great compassion. If you don't have great compassion, there's no bodhisattva, no fully enlightenment. So if you want to achieve fully enlightenment, you need to have bodhisattva. If you want to have bodhisattva, you need to have great compassion. If you need to have great compassion, then it depends on that person. Are we clear?
Yeah. Okay.
That is why, because sometimes it's easy for us to see how other sentient beings are precious and how bodhisattva compassion come from other sentient beings. But sometimes we might think, why? How is that each and every sentient beings that precious in that way? How is that each and every sentient being is precious in that way? How is that each and every sentient being play the role or the cause for our enlightenment? And that is how it plays the role. The moment you say, no, I'm not going to have compassion for these persons, then you have no enlightenment. no bodhicitta, there's no great compassion. Therefore, there's no bodhicitta, there's no enlightenment. So therefore, for us to be able to have great compassion, then we are very dependent on that person. So that person is the cause of our great compassion, which is the cause of our bodhicitta mind, and which is the cause of enlightenment. So when we understand that, then we started to feel, not only other sentient beings, but all sentient beings, each and every sentient being is precious in that way, precious and kind in that way, for our development of our compassion, great compassion, bodhicitta, and all other spiritual practice and experience we develop on the path to enlightenment and then final enlightenment. Um, does that make sense? Mm. Yes, please.
So if we see a person that we know who did something very bad, do we feel compassionate about that person just because he can help us achieve enlightenment, or because we need to understand his circumstance, thus thinking, he might not be as bad as him?
Mm-hmm. Yes, to feel a compassion for that, there are many aspects, definitely we need to think about their pain and sufferings. That is the cause of the compassion. If you don't feel the pain and suffering of another being, then you wouldn't feel compassion for that person. So definitely we need to contemplate and reflect on the pain and suffering. And, as you mentioned, even someone is doing something bad, um, which will come later too, when someone is violent and negative and doing bad things, but still one, understanding they do those things because of their own delusions. They have no control over their delusions, And secondly, they are experiencing a lot of pain and suffering, So the main is try to understand their pain and suffering. If we understand their pain and suffering, it's easy to feel compassion. If you don't feel their pain and suffering, you cannot feel compassion for them. So not only you feel their pain and suffering, but you feel their pain and suffering at the same time. If you feel that person's or that being is very dear to you, very close to you, then it's even more easy to feel compassion. I see three persons there, they all are kind of in same situations, sufferings. But someone is close to me, dear to me. Someone is a more neutral person to me. Someone is someone I have conflict. While I see all their suffering, but I might feel easy compassion for the someone who is dear to me, while I might have a little bit more challenging to feel that compassion with the more neutral one, and I will have even more challenging to feel compassion. Even I see some level of pain and suffering to someone um, whom I have conflict, whether I call it enemy or not. And so therefore, there is two levels, One, you try to understand and feel their pain and suffering. Another level, if we can feel, they are somehow kind to us, they are precious to us, they are dear to us. If you can feel that, then it becomes more easy to feel the compassion. And I think this is at the moment, this is where the training in this particular verses, is first sense of cultivating sense of close and dearness with each and every sentient beings, feeling very close, very dear, very precious of them. Yeah. Nagarjuna, not Nagarjuna, Shandeva explains, in terms of achieving our fully enlightenment, we depend on the Buddha Dhamma Sangha to show us the path, guide us, and also our gurus, through their guidance, teachings, advices, showing the path, we achieve enlightenment. But also through sentient beings. So there are two, by depending on the Guru, Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, as well as by depending on other sentient beings. And they play equal role in achieving our enlightenment. That is what Shandeva said. Even though they play equal role in our enlightenment, we hold our gurus, Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, very highly. And we hold the sentient beings very low. And Shandeva said that is wrong. We should try to respect the sentient beings. Give equal respect to sentient beings as we give respect to the Guru, the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Because they both play equal role in our enlightenment in different way. And as Shandeva mentioned, we try to please the Buddhas through our, prostration, offerings, whatever different. On one hand, on the other hand, we hurt the sentient beings, which are the very child of the Buddhas. So he explained, how can you make your uh, mother happy by beating the child? The child which the mom cherished more than herself. Okay, the mother who cherished her child more than herself, ready to give her own life to protect the child. And how are you able to please the mother by beating the child? Even you try to give gifts to the mothers. If you beat the child, that wouldn't make the moms happy. In the same way, Shantava used that example, the Buddhas and the sentient beings. The sentient beings are the child of the Buddhas. They cherish more. And so therefore, again, Shantava, mentioned how we need to treat the other sentient beings, in that way, in terms they both play equal role in leading to our enlightenment. And because of that, so very precious. Not only enlightenment, even we talk about the happiness of future life, to have a better higher rebirth, and not only higher rebirth as a human beings, but to be able to have a better life in a human rebirth. Within the human rebirth, having a more healthy life, more prosperities, within the human life, that there where you don't struggle with your livings, where you have abundance of the wealth, that you have good health, that you have surrounded by good people, families, friends who are kind, nice, not someone who fight and make, because not every family has a great relationship. Not even friends have great relationships. But to have all these good conditions, and that then it comes through the practice. To have a higher rebirth, you need a practice of moral discipline, and to have a better within the human life, to have a less struggles and more abundance, you need to practice the generosity. To be surrounded by good friends, family, supportive, you need to practice the patience. So with all this practice to the patient, generosity, and moral discipline, then we can have better higher rebirth and better, more happy life within that rebirth. And we are able to practice those, create those cause. Those are the cause and condition for better higher rebirth and better futures. And in order to engage in those practices, we rely on others. To practice the moral discipline, you need the others. The practice of moral discipline is avoiding or refraining from hurting others, harming others through your body, speech, and mind, any of three doors. If there is no objects, other sentient beings, then there is no practice to engage into avoiding or refraining from harming others. And if you don't have that practice, there's no cause for higher rebirth. So therefore, again, the very practice of moral discipline, which is the cause of higher rebirth, is very dependent on other sentient beings. To practice generosity, you need other sentient beings. If there's no other sentient beings, how are we going to practice generosity? Without a practice of generosity, then you don't create a cause to have a abundance. If there are no other sentient beings, how are we going to practice the patience from when someone hurt and harms you? And again, to practice the patience, you need other sentient beings. And so all this practice, which are the cause of better rebirth and better happy life in the future, is also dependent on others. And therefore, again, in that way, they are precious. They are precious for our happiness. And even if we don't talk about enlightenment, even we don't talk about future life and better futures, but even in this life, whatever comfort that we experience come to others, directly, indirectly, everything. We are able to stay in this house, in this hall, Gomba, and not get frozen. If you are in outside, cold, because people created this, they build this hall, and then there is heater. People who created the heater, to run the heater, you need electricity. People who created the electricity, so many people, some people invested in their money, some with their knowledge, some with their skill, hard work. They all contributed to make the electricity. They all, different people contributed to make this heating system. So many people created able to make this whole, all the material you need for that. So when you think that we are able to experience that, we can say, oh, because we pay money. Well, you go with money in Mars and see whether you can get anything there. You take all your money and go to you can take all this money and then there's no one in the Moon and see what you can get, or Mars. If there's no other sentient beings who may contribute, your money has nothing. It's just a garbage, a paper, no value. It's value because other sentient beings. If you by yourself, all this money has nothing, no value at all. The money become value because of other sentient beings. With other sentient beings, we can trade, and that is why it become value. And so therefore, so every meals we eat depend on other sentient beings, the farmers, the grocery shop, people who work in grocery, the people who do transportations, and the farmers, who get the seed from other farmers or other places. And if you go that, because most of us do not plant ourselves, don't grow ourselves. So even if you have money, again, if the farmer decided not to farm anymore, where are you going to get your food? Even if you have money, the clothes we wear to keep ourselves warm, blanket, everything that we keep ourselves warm, where does it come? We don't make ourselves all of them. It comes through others. The comfort to be able to keep warm come through contributions of others, through the kindness of others. The shelter that we live in, the transportation that we use every day, the education we get from others. If there's no teachers, educators, people who runs those educations, administration, all of that, or people who have developed curriculums over the years, centuries, people who made the books, papers, people who make the inks, people who made how to print. So, and because of all of their contributions, we are able to go to school, learn, get educations. Without them, we would not be able to learn what we learn. We wouldn't get all the education we got it. Same thing. When you get sick, we rely on others. The doctors, nurse, helper, administrator who runs those hospitals or clinics, and all others who contributed for those clinic hospital with all these different equipment, technology over the centuries. Without them, we cannot treat ourselves. When we get sick, we will die. Not only die, die with a lot of sufferings. Just like you see animals in the wild nature, when they don't get treated, how they die, not only die, how painfully they die sometimes. When they have wounds, they cannot heal that, eaten by others, bugs and like that, and that similarly that, so to be able to have cure or medicines or healing when we get sick, well, to be able to keep good health through that, depending on others. Our livelihood come through others. Job. If there's no one who is giving a job, there is no job for you. Business. If there's no customer, there's no business. You can only have your business because there's customers, others. You can only have job because there's someone who offers job. And whatever livelihood that we do, whether we do any particular job or whether we have your own business, whatever, it depends on others. Without that, there's, So again, it comes to the others. Even our spiritual practice, we learn from others, whether we are learning from a teacher, whether we are learning from a book, YouTube, online, whatever, again, because of all others who made all this possible. All this learning. And through learning, then we try to practice meditate. Through practicing meditation, we are able to develop more peaceful mind or other spiritual experiences. And all this comes through others. So when we reflect, contemplate, from morning to evening, every comfort that we enjoy, whatever pleasure, whatever comfort, whatever good things that we enjoy, if you really think, they all come to others. All come to others by depending on others. Even the exercise we do, even the walking, hiking, the path that was developed by other people's, trail that developed by other people's. So all this, we are able to use them, we are able to get the benefit, all of those benefits in our life, different benefit that we experience in our life, they all come through others. If you really contemplate, meditate in that way, then, normally we think, oh, we can count how people who are kind to me, probably we have list, not more than 20 sometime, maybe even 20, maybe we don't remember. But if you really reflect, then you see how all these unknown people, stranger to us, that we don't know them directly, we don't know them directly because we don't have direct interaction, but they are contributing indirectly towards our well-being, for our happiness, for our comfort. They all are contributing to that. We get benefit from all of them, directly, indirectly. Then when we are able to contemplate, see, and when we are able to feel it, then, even we don't know personally each of them, but we can see, feel kindness of each and every sentient beings somehow. Even people we dislike very much, they are contributing towards our well-being indirectly in so many different ways. We might be using product produced by them that we get benefit from them. We dislike the person, but we are using that product of that created by that person's, or contributed towards that product, not directly, indirectly, in different ways. And we get benefit from that. And we get benefit from that product, and that product is contributed by others, even someone who dislikes. So we are getting a benefit from that person's indirectly, in so many different ways. So yeah, so that is the main thing, is really contemplating, meditating, how each and every sentient being is precious in so many different ways, in terms of, from there we receive all immediate benefit. And also by depending on them, then we can achieve the better and higher rebirth and happy life in the future. Through by depending on them, then we are able to achieve fully awakened states. So in that, there we receive benefit from them on all these different levels. And therefore, how they are contributing towards our happiness on all these different levels, directly, indirectly. Therefore, they are kind and precious. And the more you feel their kindness and precious, the more you feel dear, they are dear to you, the more you feel they are more dear to you, the more it's easy to feel compassion for them, and it's more easy to be more kind to them. It's more easy to be more respectful to them. It's more easy to be more patient with them. You know. On the other hand, if we don't feel, if we don't recognize, if we don't feel preciousness of them, dearness of them, kindness of them, then it becomes much more challenging, difficult to feel the kindness and have respect and all of that. You know, so then that is the whole training and practice here. You know, through such training, you know, as one by seeing the kindness of them and thereby, you know, and seeing the preciousness and kindness of them, and thereby cultivating a strong sense of closeness, dearness, and by reflecting on their pain and suffering, then we try to cultivate loving kindness and compassion. And loving kindness, compassion is the source of our temporary happiness, ultimate happiness, is the source of our happiness, is the source of happiness of others. You know, as the Lama always says, if you want to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to see others happy, practice compassion. Compassion is the source of your own happiness, others' happiness, your temporary happiness, ultimate happiness. And so therefore, so if we need to cultivate loving kindness and compassion, if we need to cultivate loving kindness, compassion, how can we develop? And then by training the mind in those different ways, training the mind, one on seeing their pain and sufferings, contemplating on that, on other way, also trying to feel close with them, feeling the dear and close with each of them. The more close, the more dear you feel, the more easy it is to feel compassion. And so that is here the training, on that. And also, Adisha's mentioned in both of garlands of jewel, cultivate love and compassion and make your bodhicitta stable, And so again, cultivating the loving kindness and compassion is the key to cultivate the bodhicitta and stabilize the bodhicitta mind. And in order to cultivate the loving kindness, compassion, then cultivating training to see all sentient beings kind. And so you should check out in his 7 point of mind training where he says, meditate on the kindness of all sentient beings all the time. So same here. These first verses, and you should check out where he says meditate on kindness of others. They are same. The more you are able to feel the kindness of others, the more you can feel they are dear to you, close to you. The more you feel close and dear to you, the more easy to feel love and compassion. Mm. And again, those meditations, you can always do all the time, Mm. While you are relaxing, in nature, you can always contemplate on the kindness of other sentient beings. If we talk from any lifetime, then, it go even further, then all sentient beings has been your most kind mother so many times. All sentient being has been your most kind father so many times. All sentient being has been your more kind siblings so many times. Who can even think that. But even we don't think that, you know, at least, the happiness of enlightenment come through others. Not only others, as I mentioned, important to recognize how each and every sentient being. Because sometimes we think it from others, but we feel why each and every sentient being is how each and every sentient being is. We are depending on how each and every sentient being or kindness of them, or that is. So that is one thing. Yeah, and then and one of the doubt could arise, as I mentioned before. How is that they are kind? How is that they are kind? Because I work very hard, I pay my money to get all this benefit. How does that become kind? They don't have the intention, motivation to help or kind to me. Sometimes when you are meditating, those thoughts can come. I cannot feel compassion. I cannot feel their kindness because they don't have intention to help me. They don't have intention to benefit me. They just wanted to make money, and I had the money, and I pay it, and I got it. So how does that become a kind? Probably that kind of thought can arise in our thought and make us difficult to feel the kindness of them because of such thoughts. Well, then we can say, you value, your car, you value your house, you value your wealth, you value them very much, you hold them very precious, you hold them very dear, even though they have no intention to help you. Does the car have intention to help you, give you benefit? Does the house have that intention, motivations? Does your wealth have those intention, motivations? No. Even they don't have any intention to help, but you regard them very precious. You regard them very valuable, very dear. Why? Because you get benefit from them. That is all. It doesn't matter whether there is the intention or not. What intentions? Because you get benefit from them, because you receive benefit from them. Therefore, that is why we hold them very precious, regardless of that. You hold them precious, dear, valuable. In the same way, whether the other sentient beings have the intention to help or not help, but because we receive benefit from them, therefore we hold them dear, valuable, precious, just like we do with other objects. And therefore, we regard them kindness in that way. They are dear, and so that is the point. Don't we hold our things, especially things that you really like, very dear, very close to your heart? Don't you hold them precious? Do all things have motivations, intention to help you? No. So even when there's no intent to help benefit you, if you can hold them very precious and dear, same, we try to apply that same to others, being too. Regardless of whether they have the intention or not, because we receive the benefit them, we should regard them dear and precious and close. And that is the key. Any things, any comments, any questions?
So, well, there was only one person I was thinking of when you were talking about if you don't develop compassion and hold them. I I don't know how to overcome that. I mean,
Mhm.
intellectually, I can do. I don't know. Am I looking for I think I look for an emotional connection when we speak towards benefiting others or holding others as kind. I mean, I intellectually get it that, like the sweater I'm wearing has gone through, infinite, like,
Mhm.
in order to construct it. And there's people all along the way who have done that. And I honestly, but then there's those, and I get it with these kind of inanimate objects. I understand that, but when you have somebody who you can see how much pain and suffering they're creating for themselves, and yet they are given, like a king, they're given control over everything, and they don't use it wisely, and that tends to kick off judgmental things, and I kind of travel in reverse, go further and further away, wanting to indulge in the negativity of not only my perception but others as well.
Yeah.
And I do I is a method to do that is to sit down and just contemplate that being, if you will, that person or
Mhm.
those others, and just kind of sit with it. And
Yeah. Well, I think as the verse goes, in some of the verse, it will come
right, it was more
more
easily,
relevant with that,
right.
especially with the fourth um, verses in relation to that. But we saw that will come. But also again, um, yes, that is why we talk about yesterday too. We understand it intellectually, but we cannot feel here.
Right.
There's a gap, big gap between the intellectual understanding and feeling that.
Right.
Sitting and meditation is that fill that gap. The method from intellectual to feel it, then you sit and you take the time to contemplate, meditate, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that is the way it comes. The meditations is the one that help to fill the gap between the intellectual understanding to feeling. And so definitely we need to sit and think, contemplate on that. You know, each of those points we just discuss and talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Normally we don't really see and spend time to really feel it, contemplate and feel it. It's all here. And so that is where the meditation come into the role. The role of the meditations is
Mm.
is to do that, taking the time, taking the time to sit and reflect and contemplate on that and started to feel.
Because of them, I'm sitting here and finding peace.
Yes.
That's the way I thank them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, sure. That's yeah. You put it in very simple way. So that is true. Yeah, that yeah, because of others that you are sitting here comfortably and to be able to enjoy, you know, and to feel that, understanding is one thing, but really feeling is another thing. And so with other questions, I think we will come, but also, we'll talk more about that, but um, we have to differentiate the persons and persons' actions, you know. And it is possible when you are able to differentiate those two things, then one can feel compassion on that person at the same time stand up against such harmful actions. And there is no contradiction in that. Um, at the moment, when we cannot differentiate, then you have these contradictions. When you stand up against that action, then you cannot feel compassion with the person. When you feel compassion with the person, you cannot stand up against that actions. And that is the way the problem we have. When you try to stand up against someone's action, then it feels like you shouldn't have compassion. Having compassion doesn't mean, you know, you don't stand up against such harmful actions, you know. And also, when you stand up against such harmful actions, when anyone does such harmful actions, injustice and exploit the vulnerable one and whatever, all those, when you stand up for them, yourself or others, for that, it doesn't mean you have to have anger and hatred. You can still feel compassion at the same time stand up for that. And that is the key. That's the key. And I think sometimes people misunderstand that. People misunderstand being compassionate, being patient, meaning that then we allow them to do whatever they do. We're okay with that. Do you get it?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that, but a lot of people can somehow, oh, if I'm compassionate or if I'm patient, then that means I cannot take a stand against such harmful actions. One can be absolutely patient, one can be absolutely compassionate at the same time, they can stand up against such harmful behavior and actions.
Okay, I get that.
You know,
That makes it clear. Yeah,
it is a, and one small example will be, even in our families, a parent with the children, children misbehaving, they engage in something harmful actions, they're bullying someone else, let's say, okay? So, bullying another children, while they have the love and compassion on the child, but they will stop from doing that because they are hurting someone else, and it is also not good for themselves. So parent will stop from doing that. Parent will teach them not to do that. Parent will stop them from doing that. They might even sometimes need to take a little bit tough action so they don't do that. But that doesn't mean they don't have compassion for their child. That doesn't mean they don't have love for the child. Normally, it's because the love and compassion that they are taking those actions because they don't want to see their children hurting themselves and others, and um, so therefore, having compassion and love doesn't mean that when you see someone engaging in something harmful actions that's bringing so much pain and suffering, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't stop. You shouldn't take action to stop such actions. So we'll come later. One of the great Indian masters, Aryadeva, when chief disciple of Nagarjuna in his 400 verses, he said the Buddha taught, to differentiate between the person and person's actions.
Right.
They are not same. And so one can feel compassion with the person at the same time one can disagree and take action against such harmful actions.
Okay,
Mhm.
a little more. If the person doing the actions are so identified with what they are doing, they're so self-cherishing.
Mhm.
And for instance, I'm very sensitive, so I might walk by somebody and feel an aversion.
Mhm.
And I don't know where that aversion's coming from. And sometimes I think, well, is it coming from them? And it's a very quick judgment. It isn't like I'm standing there looking and analyzing. So not being able to separate the person from their actions, then the method to approach that is to what later on kind of sit down and I mean, I know enough now not to engage. And
Mhm.
I know enough now that I've known it for a long time, but that one of my karma characteristics is being very judgmental. I'm better now, but it's still there. So I've never really quite figured out how to let go of that kind of reaction,
Mhm.
how that can be purified if that person is so intent on and lacks the awareness of I'm in it. I'm in that empathetic thing, not particularly healthy. So I guess that's kind of around the block and up and down. Um, but is there a way to continue to cultivate the like that person is acting that way, but that's not who that person is.
Mhm.
And again, it seems to be more intellectual, even though it hits me here.
Mhm. Again, whole meditation,
Mhm,
if we again we meditate over the years, even at the very basic, it's intellectual, but if we sit and meditate,
mhm,
then slowly you started to feel differently, and then naturally you feel differently, respond immediately than and someone who has not meditated in that way. You know, for uh, you know, for example, sometime in our life we have found very often we judge someone basis on their attitude, their behavior, um, by sometimes people we know, sometimes people we don't know. We meet for the first time and we see their attitude or feel their attitude or see their sudden behavior action, and we might become very judgmental and kind of sudden in our mind judging that in certain way. But later we find out, we're wrong. Sometimes we might have thought that person was very arrogant because of that person's kind of attitude or behavior.
mhm,
But as we get to know the person isn't being arrogant. Is just his or her behavior is just like that characteristic. Some people just act in certain way. You know, not with
right.
that the arrogant attitude, but the way they say things, the way
Mhm,
they do things outside, it come like it's coming from kind of state of arrogant, but actually there's nothing to do with that arrogant attitude. It is the way persons behave or act or say
okay.
things in certain ways, and that can be with many other things. And so then when you understand that person's behavior is that, and some people, the way they talk, they're too direct. And again,
Mhm,
that is who they are. They don't know how to be polite. Uh, you know, um, again, either, you know, and some people like that kind of like that. Some people doesn't like that, being direct,
right.
you know. And again, sometimes when someone's direct, it feel like that person disrespectful, but sometimes it's not disrespectful. It's the way they are. This is their way of talking. This is their way of interacting. And when you understand that person well enough, then you know that that person is not being disrespectful or personal to bad to you. He or she, that is how he or she talks to everyone. That is how he or she behave to everyone, even the people they love, even the people they respect. That's how they are. And so then when you understand, then just because of their certain attitude or behavior, you don't have the same judgment like you had before. You have different perspective of that person than their first impressions, you know. And so again, with such awareness and reminding ourselves, all the time, even though this is my impression at the moment, that's because I don't know that person enough. If I know that person well enough inside everything, maybe it might be different, we might feel differently, you know. Sometimes we only, certain individual, we only know from what we hear, what we see from distant. We don't know that person on one day individual level. We haven't known that person so enough to really, understand that person's good side. Let's say good side.
Right.
But if you have spent with that person for a month or two, maybe you might start to feel the good side of that person. While you see the negative side of that, but also you can see the good side of that person.
Mhm.
You know, sometimes it's hard to see the good side because we don't know personally. We haven't spent enough time. And so again, that can be another thing. And so again, reminding ourselves of that, with our own experience, what has, and it also this could be, this is my impression at the moment, but that might not be the case.
Right.
That might not be the case. My impression could be wrong. What my impression of that
That's
person,
probably
how I
wrong.
feel about that, can be wrong because I have experienced so many times in my life that I have found myself being wrong from my impression of certain individuals so many times.
Right.
So, and so when you are able to remind yourself, then, you can kind of back up a little bit, immediately from being too strongly judgmental and that, being aware that I could be wrong, you
Yes.
know, just having that openness, that open mind and that understanding, you know, I could be wrong. My impression could be wrong.
Right.
The way I had the impression of that person, the the way I have the impression now, that could be wrong. Just like that happened many times in the past.
Mm. Then I get attached to the judgmental thing. Like, I don't want to give up my point of view on the person. So am I kind of,
Yeah, I think also, I think a lot of time also is influenced by culture,
Mm.
upbringings, educations. I think there is also that part too. It contributes from many, many. I think in certain culture, in certain places, people are very much opinionated. Some places, people are less opinionated,
Mm.
and it is again, is kind of the upbringing and
Right. So the
environment,
environment,
where you are encouraged to have opinion all the time, every times, you know, and so then you grow up, and that become your habit.
yeah.
That you feel like even when you don't have an opinion, you have to find the opinion, because it's almost like being kind of pressure to speak up and pressure to say something and pressure to say something unique, something different from others say. And I think that's creation of the environment and society,
Mhm.
whereas certain society and certain culture, they don't have that pressure that I need to say something, I
Right.
need to speak up, or that if I agree someone who says something, then I just agree. I don't have to say anything.
Right.
But in Southern culture, I think there seems like I have to say something. Even I don't have anything said today. He or she has already said, agree or disagree, and why they agree and why they disagree. Someone has already made point, and I just says I agree with that, and not say much. But there is some kind of culturally that I have to say something. And so I have to say something slightly different than what he or she said. But point is the same thing that I don't agree or I agree, but feel like that you have to make, and I feel like it is kind of the society, the culture, upbringing. There is that something that yes, we have to question. Yes.
I see. Oh, okay. I just have a short question about the to develop the great compassion with the cheetah mind.
Uh-huh.
So I was thinking if your person have more the attribute of patience, you have less mental affliction, you are more patient,
Mm-hmm.
more loving kindness. That's easier to develop with the cheetah mind.
Yes, sure. Yeah. If you have more patience, if you have more loving kindness, compassion, definitely, then it is more easy to develop bodhicitta. And that is also one reason why to develop bodhicitta, anger and hatred, ill will feeling, these are one of the main obstacles for cultivating bodhicitta mind. And so when you are patient, then you have less of that. And when you have less of those anger and hatred, then again, it is more easy to develop loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind. And that is why Shantideva explained so detailed on Guys Bodhi Way of Life on chapter 6 on the patience, because it's related with the bodhicitta mind. If you don't have the patience, if you are overwhelmed by anger and hatred and ill will feeling, then you cannot feel compassion and love for someone in that moment. And so therefore, yeah, sure. Yes.
So now that we've covered how we should feel compassionate for human being, what if when it comes to, let's say, when you find cockroaches at home, or when you walk in the mountains and there's a coyote trying to attack you, if I don't hurt them, they're gonna hurt me.
Uh-huh.
How, like, it's not even about compassion, it's about me not wanting to hurt them.
Mm-hmm.
How, what should I do? And how could I feel compassion for them?
Yeah. No, there's some of them are hard for us at the very beginner, especially for us beginner. For someone highly developed bodhisattvas, they have no, they are clear, you know, um, they will give up their life, a lot of the bodhisattvas, things they wouldn't take another life to protect their life, um, they will try to protect their life if there's a way without having to take the other's life, that definitely they will try that. But the highly developed bodhisattvas, I don't think they will take someone's life to protect their own life. And they wouldn't have any hesitations or any doubt or mind, if you kind of read all the stories of Buddha's earlier life as a bodhisattvas and other stories. But again, we are not bodhisattvas and we cannot pretend we are bodhisattvas. And that is also another importance that when you are not there, you try to pretend you are there and then try to act like them, uh, which is then is not.
Pretending.
Mm,
Pretending.
yeah, pretending. Yeah, so then that when we do that, then long term it has negative consequences. Because you are not bodhisattvas, you are trying to be bodhisattvas, and then since you don't have bodhisattva, then your mind changed later, and then you started to feel negative and bitter and with yourself and with the practice itself, and you start to blame everyone else, and blame the dharma, blame the teachings, blame yourself, and blame the teachers who teach that and everything, um, because we don't have the same level of inner strength courage, confidence, like both Sadhava has, So definitely that I think when Dalai Lama was asked such questions, of course, and over the years he has different way of saying it. And one time he says, run as fast as possible. You can run. You know, uh,
It's true.
yeah, I think it's always finding a way how we can manage those without taking the life. First, and that will require you have to be patience and time, because you have to try different things, how to get rid of them, whether it's cockroach or any kind of insect that you are trying to keep them away. Sometimes you don't have to, you can find there are different ways naturally how you can kind of keep them away in different ways. Sometimes people have to try different things and see how if they can keep away without, so that I think that is if you try many things and research, sometimes you might be able to find a way to do that. And that means more time, more research, more patience, and all of that. There is those, and so, and then in some cases, you have no, you cannot find an option, and there's nothing that you have to do. Then then you have to do what you need to do, being aware, respecting the life, and being instead of just kind of brushing it away, yes, nothing's happened, recognizing it's another life and doing prayers, dedicating, doing mantras, prayers, whatever way that you can. Um, so again, then it is up to the individuals to make their decisions, what they need to be done. But whatever decision they make, they're being aware and that is another beings respecting that life and having concern for that and doing prayers, mantra prayers, whatever you need to do, before someone take those actions. So at least, uh, we do something um, respecting the life one in your heart, knowing that. And secondly, doing those different prayer dedications, all of that um, for them. So yeah. Okay, so we'll do that. Chanjo Sanjo Rambo, Mage Pana Kejo, Jawal Yambal, Kong Lake, Kong to Okay, so we meet at 2, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we're going to launch. If you all